When you find yourself in that position, that's a board decision. You feel let down, the fans feel let down, the players feel let down. But you've just got to go in there and you've got to do the best with what you've got and be you. I've got to say, Christy, the smell of death had arrived a long time before the sacking came.
Were you hesitant to maybe go to Forest because of the Derby connection? Just interested on that from maybe a rival point of view. Did that ever cross your mind?
I'd already spoken to them before I joined Derby when they were in League One. It was a very clear instruction. Get us out of this division. We knew it was coming and we knew what was going on. So you've just got to be professional. You've got to deal with everybody as best as you can. You've got to try and be as organised as you can, but you know that the opposition is real quality. And there's a good chance that when you go to Liverpool, you go to Arsenal, and you're going to take some heavy defeats.
Billy, I want to start by just reflecting on the summer and Scotland. Obviously being a Scotsman and having experience managing and leading in Scotland throughout your career. What were your thoughts on their performance in the Euros?
Well, it's always very difficult, Christy. When you go to these tournaments, we all know that it's important to try and hit the ground running. And it's very important to try and build that confidence. But, I'm sure that they were very disappointed, like the rest of the nation. They would be disappointed in what happened over there. But at the same time, too, you've got to say there was some good performances individually. There's no doubt that the people performed and played very well, but I think overall we're a better team than what we showed. I'm sure the manager and staff would agree with that, and it's always very difficult from the outside looking in, Christy, to really put the finger on why it didn't go so well.
And maybe just Scotland in general then, Billy. So, you see Celtic in the Champions League, you see the development of young players coming down south as well in terms of that historical element of the likes of Gilmore and others. What do you think about maybe the youth system and the future there for Scotland? Do you feel it's positive, or do you think there's stuff to maybe work upon within that?
No, I think there's a lot of clubs now building through their academy, and they're producing a lot of good young players. I think you can see that in many of the teams in the Premier League, and also I've watched a lot of first division games and second division games, championship games, etc. I've got to say there's good young players out there, there's good young players coming through, and all they now need is a platform to go and show what they can do. Okay,
so if we bring you back to your kind of beginnings then, Billy, how did football become a passion for you, and how did it emerge for you in Glasgow?
Well, I've got to say, a very, very, very long time ago, Christy. It seems a very long time ago. But right from the age, I think about 6 years of age, my parents really encouraged me to pick up the ball in the boots and get onto that grass across where we stayed, and we played there from morning to night. And then as you get through the schooling, and then of course you join boys clubs, and that passion and that appetite to go and play football, to learn the game and to be involved in the game, I've got to say I had a wonderful childhood. It was a tremendous period for me. My parents were first class in relation to every Christmas and birthday and things like that. Christy, they would always go out and make sure you're well equipped with the right boots and the right strips and the right ball. And I've got to say, I do look back on that with tremendous joy, and it certainly was a great childhood.
Do you have any things that stand out on that moment that stuck out that enables you to maybe have that persistence and that drive to become a footballer and then work within the game from a leadership and management point of view? Was there anything that stuck out that enabled you to keep that motivation and drive to achieve what you've have achieved?
Yeah, I think the World Cups, I think the 70s World Cups, early 80s World Cups, I think when you look at Scotland back then, of course we had the Joe Jordans, the Kenny Dalgliishs, the Martin Buckens, the Gordon McQueens. I could go on and on and on here. Wonderful players that I looked up to. And I think it was those World Cups, probably early 70s, mid-70s into early 80s. I would say, Christy, that looking at that team with the Graham Sounessies and all these guys, they were a special group, a special bunch, and probably should have achieved a lot more also with the talent that they had in their team.
So if I bring you to Motherwell, your first managerial experience, could you maybe just give some information on how that come about and what your thought process was going to the club?
Well, it's very interesting because, even as a young player, I was always very keen on taking notes. I can go way back to my days at Rangers as a player, and I can tell you, as a 16-year-old player, I was taking notes on drills and exercises and runs, and I would speak to the staff regarding what they'd done and what the times were, etc. So from a very early age, I'd been involved in coaching, or very keen in coaching, Christy. And then as I go into my kind of 20s, I've been about the mid-20s area, I then started to coach 2 or 3 times a week with boys' clubs, junior teams, amateur teams, girls' teams, council teams. And I would go out 2 or 3 times a week. My car would be full of the balls, the bibs, the discs and the cones. And I'd go out there and I would work 2 or 3 times a week as a professional player with these different age groups, different sizes and different abilities. And then, of course, when I went to Motherwell, I was asked to get involved in under-15s. I started to do some 15 coaching as a player. I then was asked to come into the under-20, I think it was at that time. I was asked to come in there and take over that group. And then, right out of the blue from there, I was then approached by the chairman and the board. And at 33 years of age, they asked me to become the player manager.
Everything that you see on this channel, from the scripts to the interviews to the thumbnails, etc., is all off my own back. And to help the channel grow and to help me out, could you please click the subscribe button down below? It's absolutely free to do, and the more subscribers we get on this channel, the bigger the guests and the bigger the entertainment is for you to have some great insights to explore some of the things that are happening within the sporting world. So please click the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. And on that maybe experience, do you feel like that those life lessons enabled you to be more confident in that role from those times of, you mentioned under 15s and doing drills and taking notes? Did that all come to fruition and you being able to express yourself and use these skills that you've learned into the football club?
Well, it's a pathway, I think, Christy. One of the things that I'm very pleased about is that when I look at my pathway, I've come through the different levels as a player coach, first team coach, assistant manager, and I do like that pathway of experience, that pathway of learning. I think it stood me in good stead, to be honest with you. And I look back in my time with all these different coaching sessions that I took, also the different characters, different levels of player. Women's football at that time and men's football, different levels. I've got to say, it was a great experience. I was very thankful for it. And then, of course, you got into the professional side of the game, then it's different. There's a different mindset. There's a different approach. The stakes are higher. And, of course, you go and you do what you've got to do with disciplines and demands.
Just on that then, Billy, so in terms of you maybe adapting to different environments, and you mentioned, women's game, men's game, and those different age groups, and then, the professional elite level experiences that you've had, how have you maybe adapted your leadership and management styles into those scenarios? Is it something that you've worked on over time or something that you've applied through conversations, etc.? I'm just interested on where you get your knowledge there.
Transparency, honesty, encouragement. I think one of my great strengths is communication. I'm a very good communicator with players and staff and people like that. I do believe that that's important, to really get inside the head of people, to know how they're feeling, to get to know their families, the issues that they've got, how they feel about certain formations and positions. I think it's all we do. Again, the upbringing, your own personal experiences are very important as a player. I look at all the coaches and managers that I've played under and worked with. I looked at all the players that I played beside. And I think all of that really molds you into being who you are when you start to go into the coaching world. And then once you go in, Christy, I think it's important to stick with your own beliefs. Stay very strongly and firmly on your own thought processes and how you like things done. But more importantly, treating people well, letting people know what the expectations and demands are, giving people the disciplines that's required to run a professional organisation. And then, as I said, have those day-to-day conversations where you're encouraging people and you're complimenting people and, of course, correcting people.
So there might be people that are listening and watching this podcast, Billy, that might be in their first footballing role, and they might want to get a little bit of insight on how they might cope with the demands of the different contexts and situations that happen. For reflecting back on your time then at Motherwell, was there anything that you would give advice to in terms of how you might go into a position and maybe adapt those values and those communication skills that you've just mentioned to embed that within the club and try and gain success?
Yeah, I've spoken to lots of young coaches. I get contacted very regular by young coaches, and they ask me all these types of questions, and I've got to say, it's like we can read as many books as we like, Christy, we can watch as many videos, but there's nothing better than standing in somebody's shoes to truly understand what it's like to take over this club, to find out what's going on in the inside, get to know the people and the kind of culture of the club, etc. And I think it's all about sticking to your own beliefs. I think it's all about doing what you feel is right and treating people the right way, etc. And you can only do that by going into each club, looking at the environment, sitting down and being very clever on each department and what needs changed, and basically taking your time and installing those beliefs and installing that style of play that you feel is going to get success.
You later went on to Preston, North End. How did that come about then, from that transition from Scotland to England?
Very interestingly, after leaving Motherwell, I was contacted by the former Scotland manager, and sadly we've lost Craig Brown. Craig contacted me, asked me if I would come down to Preston as first team coach. I've got to say, Christy, it was right out of the blue. I didn't really know Craig that well. I'd met him 2 or 3 times down at coaching courses at Largs, but I never really knew him that well. And all of a sudden, here's this guy, I think it's 2 World Cups, 70 international games, and a couple of European Championships kicked in there. This vastly experienced manager is all of a sudden contacting me. I'm thinking, wow, what a learning process this could be. So I went there with Craig as first team coach. I then became assistant manager. And then, of course, from there, I became caretaker manager and eventually manager.
What did you learn from Craig during that experience? Was there a sense of maybe imposter syndrome as well, just because of the fact that who he was?
No, I think obviously in relation to football side of things, then you could just see how he handled players. Yeah, he was a very good man manager, Craig, good communicator, and he knew how to put the arm around players. He wasn't as soft as what people imagined that he was. He also had quite a sharp tongue on him, and when he needed to, he could step in and sort 1 or 2 people out. But I think off the pitch is where he taught me. I think off the pitch, he was a very good politician. He knew how to play and how to go about things in relation to the board and the press and dealing with all the peripheral things that was required. Interesting, you only get that through experience. And I think it was at 70 odd years of age then, he'd already been round the waters, round about the places once or twice before. He knew how to handle himself. And I've got to say, it was great education, because we did have tremendous time together, tremendous respect for each other, and it's very sad that we've lost him, but he certainly did give me some great memories, particularly off the pitch. I've got to say that he knew how to go about things and how to play that politically correct card. That was very important.
Just on that then, so you mentioned earlier around, your development within communication and being a strong communicator, and then you mentioned Craig maybe being a bit fiery at times, and maybe that generational difference was probably more acceptable then than it is today. What do you think around that in terms of treating players and developing players to maybe sometimes show that I wouldn't say aggressive side, but more traditional approach to enable to motivate them in comparison to maybe before? What are your thoughts on that, if that makes sense? Well,
I've got great respect for Bill Shanley. I've got great respect for Craig Brown. I've got great respect for Ali Ferguson. All these people that come up when football was, if you like, a much more working class type game, and you could get away with an awful lot more back then. But I think the one thing, Tristan, that we can say, football hasn't changed. Certainly, people within football have changed, and the game's developed and evolved, and we now know it's a massive business. But these great managers of past, they got great results in Europe. They dropped Steens and these people like that at Celtic, and the Jock Wallaces at Rangers, and all these other managers down south that came through the system as players back in the good old days, and then took those very strong beliefs into their club, and they managed to work wonders. They got great results. They won trophies. They were very successful at international level. They were hugely successful at European level. So I've got to say that although we've moved on from then, there is still a lot to be said about these guys and how they worked. And of course, it's all about adapting, and it's all about changing and evolving to the modern world and what we live in, and that's important.
Because there's a lot of argument, isn't there, around playing out from the back and all these tiki-taka terminology and buzzwords that's used. And if you reflect back on maybe more traditional stances, that I feel like that's kind of coming back into fashion a little bit. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, what I do agree with, Christy, is that it will always be a results-driven business. Well, they say it is, but that's not always the case, as we know. But, you can't fault one team for having a certain style of play that's got maybe a small budget. The same as you can't fault another team that's got a tremendous budget, tremendous depth of squad, and they've got their own style of play. So I think it's all we do with the culture of the club. It's all we do with the history of the club. It's all we do with the kind of budget that you've got and the players at your disposal. I'm sure that every manager would love to play this type of football where you're building from the back and you're playing 6,000 passes before you get to the halfway line, and then you go in there and score a goal after 2,500 passes. That type of football, Christy, is obviously very, very good. But also, there's certain grounds that you go to. There's certain clubs that you play against where it is just a war from start to finish. It's very competitive. There's a lot of physicality in that game. And you've got to stand up and be counted in that certain environment. And it's horses for courses, I think, all the time. And it's important that you try and, again, people have got their own beliefs on how you play. You can't criticise anyone for having that belief, whether it's back to front, whether it's building from the back or whatever. It's all about results, and managers and coaches are always judged at each club on results, and it should be always about results.
If we go back to your time at Preston, obviously that period where there was a playoff opportunity and near misses to get into the Premier League, how did you maybe come back from those setbacks then? So you've had such a long run to get into that top 6 position and then not necessarily reaching what you wanted to achieve. Is there anything that you do from a mental perspective and a leadership and management perspective that tries to galvanise the team again to go again? I'm just interested on your process there.
Well, you get through a long season, 46 games of the season. There's cup games and there's all different things that you face. And then through that, you get tremendous runs. You break records. You get to the playoffs, and you know yourself that the playoffs can be a little bit of a lottery. On the day, it's all about the breaks. And I've said this before. It's about breaks. It's about refereeing decisions. It's about who's available in the squad, etc. So I think what you should not do, and this again is advice to any young coach coming in, they may find themselves been through a long season with great success. When you get to the playoffs, people will then sit down and question, like they may have done, Christy, when Sir Alex at Manchester United in Germany losing the game with 3 or 4 minutes to go. And then he brings on a super sub called Solskjaer. And this guy comes on and basically wins the game and wins that trophy. It would be interesting if anybody after that game would question Sir Alex' starting lineup because he didn't play that. So I've always said that in football's a very tactical game. It really is a game of chess. And you don't have to win the game in the first 30 minutes. It's all about winning the game over that 90 plus minutes. And you've got guys that may be more important that come on for you, i.e. Sir Alex, Manchester United, Solskjaer. And then you've got other times where, as I say, you come through that long season, you get to the playoff final, and Preston lose the playoff final quite simply because my centre-back, who was excellent all season, tries to go across, he cut out a cross, he slip on the ground, he finds himself sliding, the ball goes behind him, and the West Ham striker puts the ball in the back of the net and you lose 1-0. Sometimes you just can't justify for things in football. Simple as that.
Fine margins then, in that sense.
Absolutely, Christy, absolutely.
And in terms of maybe you going into your role at Derby, was that always in the back of your head of maybe those experiences at Preston and those short misses that, okay, now at Derby I need to make sure that I get promoted from a personal point of view and a pride point of view?
Probably promoted too early. The game plan and the agreement when I first joined Derby was year 1, mid-table, year 2, top 10, year 3, gets promoted. So when we find ourselves getting into this aging club, and it was an aging club, fantastic football club, great people at the club, supporters were excellent. But we find ourselves getting in there and we've got a whole range of vastly experienced players. We have to make some changes. but we're trying to be a difficult team to beat in the first season. If you look at them just avoiding relegation the previous year, then we knew that the first objective is to make this team difficult to beat. And I laughed just recently, Christy, when he talked about Tottenham Hotspur. All of a sudden, this great Tottenham Hotspur manager's coming in for some stick because of the goals he's losing and the set pieces that he can't defend against. And, you know, I just laugh at the criticism towards a fantastic manager. But getting back to Derby, I've got to say that we found ourselves a team that was difficult to beat. We found ourselves getting to the playoffs 2 years too early. We were never going to turn it down. We then find ourselves going to Wembley, and all of a sudden you think to yourself, here we go, we're playing against a Premiership squad in West Brom, a team riddled with talent, and you'll know what a proper club is, obviously being a Birmingham fan. The Baggies are a proper club. And I say that jokingly because I know that you're a lovely Birmingham supporter. But you know that the West Brom back then of that team, it was just riddled with absolute top quality. And we go there. The game plan was simple. They will control the ball better. We have to be disciplined. We will get opportunities. We've got to defend well. And as an underdog, again, you just never know what can happen on the day. And thankfully, we got over the line and we were there after 11 months, finding ourselves in the Premier League 2 years too early. And it certainly was a great achievement.
Did you have to maybe convince yourself then that you could achieve that season? If you think of obviously the time frame that you set, and then maybe working with the players where there's a sense of momentum, and you know you see the quality that you have in that season, that first season at Derby, do you maybe have to shift your mindset and think, okay, well this can actually happen now, and if it comes too early, it comes too early? I'm just interested on your thought process there.
Yeah, no, I've got to say, we get to every single club and we make it clear to the players and the staff and, you know, the board. Obviously, the board will have an objective. They'll have what their target may be. And like Derby, we did chat about that and we did create this 3-year plan. We always believed that building that club up over 3 years, we could have the right departments in place in relation to when we eventually get there. Obviously, we got there 2 years too early. Here we are winning the biggest prize in football, the richest prize in football. And you've just got to take what you get. But I go into every club with the same opinion, Christy, which is to make players better, to make teams better, to make the fans proud of what they're watching and what they're seeing, and to obviously turn the economics around at the club and try and get as much success as quick as possible as we can. And that's always the achievement.
Just on the Championship as a whole, and I'm sure every fan and every spectator and even manager and coach, they always mention the emotional rollercoaster of 46 games and anyone can beat anyone. What do you do from a leadership and management point of view then to maybe build that momentum and develop that sense of camaraderie and togetherness and to keep pushing and keep persistent? I'm just interested on that year that you had at Derby and how that came about from a management point of view.
Well, I think you take over and straight away you start with obviously you start with this blank sheet of paper. It's important to give everyone in the club that opportunity. And I really don't care, Christy, what happened previously. And I say that to all the players. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going into the club. Everybody's got that blank sheet of paper. It's all about those that want to stay. It's all about those that want to be competitive and successful. And we'll then start to identify the changes that we need to do. We'll then advise the board where we feel we need to strengthen. We understand it's a long season, so therefore the second window will be very important. But I only ever go to the second window with the board and try and make good additions if the club's in a very strong position. So if we find ourselves in a strong position, the second window becomes very important, as it was for us. We signed Stephen Pearson, who then goes on and scores a winning goal at Wembley. But it's all about building up, Christy. I think it's all about, at the beginning, giving people that opportunity, galvanising the squad and the staff, letting everybody feel part of it, let them know that they feel part of it, tell them that it's their opportunities here, no matter what happened in the past. Try and get that momentum and confidence up and running early. And then as the season goes on and you start to see this club and this team develop, I think it's important then to think about that running. Very long season, as you said. 2 or 3 games a week, very difficult. You understand the suspension and injury, so you've got to deal with that. And then finally, more importantly, being a good finisher in the Championship is absolutely crucial. That last 2 or 3 months, when you get to the March, April time, and then all of a sudden things start to really heat up, then you just need that little bit of luck, Christian. You may find yourself getting over that line.
Did you feel like maybe you had a good balance with, older senior members like Darren Moore and then Giles Barnes? Did you feel like that was a good balance for you in terms of having that camaraderie?
Yeah, Championship, I think there's no doubt that we were building, and we did have a very good competitive team in the Championship. And we knew that 2 years of development was very important to play the style of play that we wanted to play, get to the if you like, the targets that we're trying to set ourselves, be that exciting club that the fans would want to see. But here we are after 10, 11 months, and we've broken all the records, we've broken all the stats, we're getting all these clean sheets in, and very difficult to beat. But again, I think that first season was important to be that style of team, if you like. And for the Championship, we did have a very good group, and we built up a very good group. Christy, once you get to the Premier League, it's a different ballgame, because all of a sudden, to compete, you have to see commitment from the top. You have to see that support from the top. And sadly, and I don't have anything against it, when a club decides it wants to be a selling club, and when it decides it's going to be an outgoing board, then we've just got to accept that there's changes afoot. There's no doubt that changes will happen. We're very proud of where we are and what we've done. And unfortunately, that commitment and that support just wasn't there going into that Premier League. And the club did become a selling club.
We'll talk about the Premier League in a moment. I'm just interested you mentioned that second period transfer window. I remember that period, and again, being a Birmingham fan, as you alluded to earlier, around Birmingham was signing players like Rowan Vine and £4 million strikers, and bringing lads in from Arsenal on loan. And obviously, at that time, you were kind of competing with Birmingham, and Sunderland were in there as well. And then, obviously, you fall into the playoffs. How is that for you from a leadership point of view, in terms of motivating players, that you've just missed out on the automatic promotion, and then you kind of go into the playoffs where you have to push again? Is there anything that you kind of can reflect upon as a manager that you did during that period to try and get the team going again and try and bring belief that they can get promoted?
We have to be competitive, and we'll try and get as high as we can. But we knew that there was a lot of big clubs in the Championship. We knew there was a lot of big spend in the Championship. And to compete with these guys that had obviously had a number of years to develop that style of play in that team, then we knew we had to be patient. So I've got to say, as far as I was concerned, getting to that mid-table position, then I think the board would have clapped their elbows in the first season, particularly when we had that early conversation after just missing out on that relegation situation. But we find ourselves in the top end of the table. All of a sudden, this club that's just avoided relegation starts to feel a little bit nervous. Fans are getting a little bit nervous. We're getting closer to the top of the table. We're in the playoffs. This club's not expected to be anywhere near this position. And all of a sudden, we're looking around us and we're seeing these huge clubs called Birmingham City and West Brom and Sunderland and so on and so on. And here we are competing with them. So I've got to say, Christy, there was never any disappointment. We already had overachieved, and we were now going to give it our best shot to try and compete with these Premier League squads that had been built up over a number of years.
It's a great perspective, and I like that perspective in terms of what you said and that outlook towards the league and the competition. Did you enjoy your time at Wembley? Obviously, winning the playoffs. Did you enjoy that moment?
Well, I did. Obviously, you go there and it's a great event. It's a great time. Don't get me wrong. When you get success at Wembley, and then you've got to do all that after-match celebration and get round it with the open-top bus, and you've got to meet the mayor and all the things that take place, then it shortens your time period to prepare for the next season, being in the Premier League. And I've said that before. That first window was difficult. There's no doubt the second window becomes very important. But the Wembley event was great. Christy, obviously, it was a great achievement. It was a special day for the fans and the players and the staff and the board and everybody concerned. It was just unfortunate that when we took the next step, then the goalposts were changing and people decided to go in a different direction.
So just on that then, so you mentioned throughout the podcast around your values and your behaviour and your communication. So you've got those kind of set standards for yourself, Billy, and then you mentioned maybe the board are not aligning with those values and you don't want to maybe create conflict. How do you deal with that in terms of, okay, you're in a position where you're a Premier League manager and you're probably thinking this is everything that I've wanted and worked for, and then those values from a club perspective is hard and you're leading down, but obviously leading up can be a challenge. How do you cope with that as a manager? I'm just trying to get some insight on how you deal with such issues.
Well, again, you get to the end of that very good success where you sit down and you start to plan for the new challenge in the Premier League. I think we all know that the Premier League is a place where money has to be spent. If you're going to compete, then you've got to be a big spending club. Otherwise, you'll find yourself, just as Southampton are finding at the minute, life can be very difficult in the Premier League. And there's a lot of very, very experienced clubs in there with a great deal of spending. I think, if I remember right, Christy, I think that season that we found ourselves Premier League, the first window, I think Spurs, we were a top 6, maybe top 10 club in the Premier League at that time. They went and spent 50 million on the first window to add to their squad. I think our spend at that time was just over 10. And it became very clear to us that obviously there was changes at foot. But when you find yourself in that position, that's a board decision. You know, at the end of the day, you get disappointed. You feel let down, the fans feel let down, the players feel let down. But you've just got to go in there and you've got to do the best with what you've got. And we knew that we didn't have the necessary tools to compete with the level that we found ourselves in. And what you were hoping for is you were hoping, just like Steve Cooper found at Forest, where he found himself in a very difficult place at Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. They were all calling for his head. And you've got to give great credit to the board of Forest for the way that they stood by Stevie Cooper in the Premier League. They stuck with him. They settled everyone down. And eventually the lad went on to do some great things. And yeah, that's great credit to the board. And that's the type of board support that you need when you go into the Premier League as a new boy. And when you've got that support that's standing by you, like the Forest board did with Cooper, then I've got to say it's great credit to these people. And well done, Steve, for doing what he done.
Do you feel maybe then, just on reflection, that the board could have been a little bit more supportive on that in hindsight?
No, the board had their agenda. The board had their plan. That's entirely up to them. They put their money in. They've won the big prize after 11 months. They decide they were going to become that outgoing board selling club. That's their choice. There's nothing the manager or the players or the staff can do. We've just got to do what we can and hopefully get their support, as we talked about with the Nottingham Forest situation. So when you get that support, then you can build and develop. When you get that time and you get those people around you, they give you that backing. But when you find in a very difficult situation where it is an outgoing board, it is a selling club, and things are changing, then you've just got to accept that there's going to be changes, and it's only a matter of time.
Just to kind of dig deeper on that, and I'm just interested on the concept of leaving a football club. So obviously, you know, Sky Sports News and all these news channels glamorify, you know, sackings and people resigning, etc. I'm just interested in what the process is like leaving a club, Billy. So that time at Derby comes to an end. What is it like for you in terms of that process? I know it's not nice and it's not the best news that you want to hear, but is there a meeting? Is it done informally? Is it done formally? I'm just intrigued on that process of leaving a club, because there might be people listening and watching that see it glamified but don't really know the intricate things that happen. Could you maybe inform us on that?
Well, I think the first indication came after the Wembley win, when the press were asking me, do you think you will still be here next year? Right. Christy, I'm thinking, hold on a second. We've just won Premier League. Just won this game into the Premier League. And here I am in the after-match press conference, and some of the press are asking me, do you think you will still be here next year? Now, as far as I'm concerned, there's a long stage between getting that promotion and then getting into the Premier League and then getting sacked. I've got to say, Christy, the smell of death had arrived a long time before the sacking came. So it wasn't new, it wasn't a surprise. We knew it was coming and we knew what was going on. So you've just got to be professional. You've got to deal with everybody as best as you can. You've got to try and be as organised as you can, but you know that the opposition is real quality. And there's a good chance that when you go to Liverpool, you go to Arsenal, and you're going to take some heavy defeats in this very early stages, particularly with a club that's got this, if you like, this agenda. When the phone call does come in and you're called to that meeting, then it doesn't come as a great surprise. You're already prepared for it. You know the situation. You've already had that discussion with your staff. And you've just got to accept that this is football. Some clubs stick by their managers. Other clubs throw their managers to the wolves. That's entirely their decision in how they conduct themselves. But we found ourselves getting that call, making that change after a very, if you like, very early time in the Premier League. And Christy, I've said time and time again, I wasn't in the Premier League. I only visited the Premier League. And it was unfortunate the way it went. But the call comes in, you accept what they're saying and the changes they're making, and you just go on with life and look forward to the next chapter.
Do you get the time to maybe reflect on that, so you come away from the extreme busyness of being a professional football manager? That period where you kind of come out of the game. Do you reflect? Do you take time to just think about what's happened during that period and try and apply new ideas going forward? Is that kind of a key element for football managers to kind of come away and debrief on that?
Yeah, well, see, I am a big student of the game, still am. I'm building lots of qualifications. I'm going to lots of CPDs and doing lots of courses. Very short in the next 2 or 3 days. I'm heading over to a European club to look at training sessions and games. And so, when you come out, you get that time. Of course, you sit down and you review it. You look at all sorts of situations and you do reflect on some of the things that took place. But I've got to say, very proudly, and a great compliment to the staff and players and everybody involved, it was a wonderful, wonderful achievement. And we leave with great pride. And we all know what's took place. And it's all about getting over that disappointment, continuing your education, continuing your role of being a student of the game, going over and learning from other people, which I did. I went abroad, spoke to some very experienced managers, Claudio Ranieri and people like that. They were very helpful. And then you look forward to that new chapter, Christy. You look forward to that next challenge.
Were you hesitant to maybe go to Forest because of the Derby connection? I'm just interested on that from maybe a rival point of view. Did that ever cross your mind?
No, again, you always give courtesy to the people that want to speak to you. Forest were a club that came in. I'd already spoken to them before I joined Derby when they were in League One. And I met a lovely Nigel Doughty, sadly not here with us. But I had a great meeting with Nigel. When Forest were in that League One, I decided to go elsewhere. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get contacted by Nigel Doughty. I had a very good meeting down in London, down in Mayfair, with Nigel. He explained the situation. It was a very clear instruction. Get us out of this division. Take nothing to do with anything else, just focus on the first team. Everything else is responsibility is for other people to deal with. And I was delighted to join such a wonderful club. The fans were magnificent. The place was just different from Derby County. It was much more of you could just smell the Brian Clough and the good old times that they had at Forest, the stadium, the type of boardroom and etc. And I've got to say, Christy, it was a great challenge. I looked at that as a wonderful challenge. It was a great opportunity. And I was excited about that.
Did you maybe find more external pressure because of that? I always think of more recently with Rafael Benitez going to Everton, and you mentioned my club, Alex McLeish went to Aston Villa. Do you find yourself having more external pressure and maybe having to cope with that differently if it was a different club? Because obviously the relationship with Derby and Forest there and winning the fans over, as you've mentioned.
Did you think I was going to get stick from Derby? Yes. Yes, I knew the Derby fans were going to give me stick. That's just natural. That's part of the course. So I knew that by going, I don't know, many miles away, Derby Forest is it maybe 14 or 12 miles, whatever it is, Christy, I knew that I was going to the biggest rival. It's like here in Glasgow, going from Celtic to Rangers. Then you know what the aftermath is going to be. And I was very aware that I was joining a great club, a great competitor, a local rival of Derby County. And we all knew what was potentially going to happen. But I've got to say, I went in with great confidence that we could turn this fantastic club around. I had a wonderful relationship with Nigel Doughty all the time, all the way through the time I spent at Forest. And I've got to say that, again, we take over with the youngest squad in the Championship. It's all about avoiding relegation. We've done that with 3 or 4 games to go. I sit down with the chairman in the summer and I advise him what I think we should do to make the club better and the team better. Thankfully, he took those words, Christy, and was very pleased with that advice. And then we go on, and again, we managed to take this club that was, very much spending time in the bottom of the league. We take that club and we get them to the playoff situations. And again, some wonderful records broken, some wonderful performances and stats that we got under our belt. And we were very proud of what we done.
One of those was an 18-match unbeaten run. Proud moment for you?
Yeah, it was obviously very pleased. I think there was a few Tifo Brian Clough's. I think it was home record of 12 games without defeat. That was very special. We also had other records that were very special. We had a fantastic squad of players, great players in the team. We had a great camaraderie and spirit. The performances were slightly different to what they were at Derby. Derby, we were harder to beat, more organised in the sense of disciplined. Forest, there was a much younger group of players, very, very exciting group of players with more pace in the team, for example. And again, it was great credit to the people previously that built up this excellent squad that we took over. And all we done is we went in there and made some changes, galvanised the squad, got players to believe in themselves, and encouraged the players to play their full potential. And of course, when you get that, then you can get that momentum, and you can then go on and do some great things.
Are you happy to see them maybe being in the Premier League? You mentioned Brian Clough in the history of Nottingham Forest. Are you happy to see them being in the Premier League and doing so well today?
Well, they're a great set of fans. It's the same as Derby County. You don't forget, you have great moments at these clubs, Preston, North End. I had wonderful times at Preston. Yeah. The fans were excellent to me. When you leave the club and you go to a local rival or you go to another Championship club, then you expect the banter. You turn around and you accept, Christy, that that's just what happens in football. But I've got to say that I wish them all well. I had great memories and great times at Preston, wonderful times at Derby County. The fans, every single club were first class. They were great to me when I was there. Not so great when I left, as you always expect when you go to another competitor. But that's life in football. But I've got to say, really pleased to see them getting that success, particularly for the great fans that follow them, and particularly for the obviously the great support that they have.
You mentioned that you still watch football, you still engage with it, you travel and watch games, and you're constantly learning. From your perspective, then, Billy, maybe being at the game in terms of a management role for a couple of years, is there anything that you have set out for yourself to try and bring back to the games? Or anything that you want to do in terms of maybe that leadership and management learning that you've learned over these years and these experiences? Is there anything that you want to do going forward?
Especially, I said to you earlier, football hasn't changed. People within football have changed. That's a certainty. But I've got to say that football's all about, even today, I'm fit, I'm ready, I'm up to date with my qualifications, I've got all the CPD, I'm going to all the courses, I'm going to all the games, I'm doing my club visits, I'm reading all the books, I'm watching all the videos, I'm keeping an analysis on all the players, and it's all about going to these games and just watching the team shapes, looking at the players, looking at the ones that are playing well and the ones that are old, the ones that are young, looking at that style of play, looking at set pieces. and just keep up to date with things. But, it makes no difference to me. If I take over a club tomorrow, I don't have to go and get fit. I'm ready to go. The boots are ready to go. I take myself back on that training ground with very good stuff, and we go and do what we've always done, which is to look at a squad of players, galvanise that squad of players, take individual players and make them better, take the team and make it better, turn the club into a difficult team to beat, a winning club, and make sure that the economics of that club go through the roof, and we help them get better and hopefully help them get success. So I've got to say I'm looking forward to that next challenge, Christy. But as far as watching games, watching players, and what it means for me to go back into the game, nothing changes. It's still the same ball, it's still the same pitch, it's still the same tactics, one or two adjustments, still the same players. It's football's football, and it's all about that man management and that organisation and that belief and confidence to go in there and make people better.
So final segment then, Billy. I always ask some of our guests that, how would you like to be remembered in terms of the game? Is there anything that you think, just on reflection of yourself, and you mentioned these different skills and communications and skills and relationships that you've built up, how would you think you would be remembered within the game? Is there anything that's really important to you that you sense from those values at that early age of Glasgow that's become the person you are today?
Well, I think most people that have dealt with me, if you ask players and staff and auxiliary staff, the bus drivers that still contact me, the kit men that still contact me, the academy secretaries that still contact me, players that still contact me. I've always tried to treat people well. I've always tried to, do the best I could, and treating people as if it was my own child. You can never make everybody happy. We know that when you drop players and you leave players out, and you make tough decisions, and that's what a manager's about. You've got to make difficult, tough decisions for the best interest of the club and the team. But in general, Christy, I've got to say that I did have a great relationship, even with supporters. While I was at these clubs, the relationship was always fantastic. We do know at times that propaganda in modern football becomes a big thing, and we accept that. But generally, I've got to say, great relationships with them, great respect for them. They had great respect for me, and you watched their team get success and break these records, get on these runs, and get that wonderful economic turnaround that is very important for clubs, as well as bringing in the players like David Newton at Preston for 99,000 and then selling him for over 6 million, etc. All of these things add to the great times that you had. But how would I like to be remembered? I'm sure that if you take away the competitive edge of rivalry, I'm sure that many, many people in the stands would have great respect for what I did and how I tried to work, and the honesty and the integrity and the drive and commitment I had. I'm sure that you'll find that's what you'll get back from players, staff and supporters and all the people involved at the clubs.
Billy, I just want to say thank you for your time. You speak very elegantly, very openly, and I just want to thank you for getting you to share these experiences. Obviously, we've been back and forth on LinkedIn. Speak to Lee, who's part of your backroom team and your advisor, and we finally got it done today. So I just want to again say thank you and good luck in the future, wherever that may be, and might be Derby, I don't know. Good luck with that.
Christy, can I just say it was a pleasure to chat to you about the good old times, and I really did thoroughly enjoy your conversation. I'm here if you need anything in the future. I'd be more than happy to help you or help any of your colleagues, no problem at all. And as a Brummie, my assistant manager is a great Brummie, Ned Kelly. He's a Birmingham lad. He's very similar to yourself. You Brummie guys are quite special and quite opening, and he's come across with that strong personality. So I'll certainly tell my great assistant that I was speaking to a good Brummie lad today. And if there's anything I can do, Christy, in the future, don't hesitate to contact me or my advisor, and we'll be delighted to help you, mate.